We're going to keep diving into it. But first, let's take a moment and talk to Stephen in Arizona, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Stephen, what can we do for you tonight?
Well, I wanted to thank you, first of all, for taking my call. And I apologize in advance as I jump around with pronouns a little bit as I describe what I'm going through. I am an atheist. I am part of the LGBT community myself. I identify as pansexual, I guess. And I have a friend who has recently transitioned. And when we met, she was lesbian. And we were like the little LGBT leaders at our place of work. We made everybody go to the 8th walk and do things like that and become socially aware. And in the last couple of years, she became he. And I've struggled. I've really struggled with not so much accepting that she is now he, but what to do with my memories and how I interact with this person, because it's not, I have a lot of friends who have, for some reason now have LGBT children that have all come out to them, and they send them to me like I'm going to know everything about everything. And
Sure. I hear that.
I know the line about, I know the difference between sex and gender and sexuality, and I know all the different words. I just said I identify as pansexual. I probably better identify as demisexual, and then I'm just kind of all over the place. I like that the kids keep coming up with new words. I try to stay on top of it. And I remember with one of my kids, who comes to me, is non-binary, and they were like, Mom is having such a hard time with this, because they had renamed themselves to better align with who they felt they were. And I said, first of all, your mom sent you to me. She loves you. She is trying as hard as she can to get her head around this. And when she looked at you, when she gave birth to you and picked out your name, she had all these images of what you were going to grow up to be. So give her some time, because the fact that you and I are even having this conversation means she loves you. So I can have those conversations with other people's kids, even with other people. But when it comes to this friend of mine, I remember, when we met, we traveled together. She lived with me briefly when she was between apartments. And then now she's he. And I still love this person. Let me be very, very abundantly clear, but it's hard for me not to call him by the quote unquote dead name, which really hurts me to say. Both that I had trouble with it, but also I don't like the term dead name. I understand where it comes from, but she's not dead. She is now, I like the idea of caterpillar to butterfly kind of idea, that she is now he. But I struggle with it so much because I worry about using the wrong name, using the wrong pronoun, or referencing a memory that I'm not clear on whether that's, like, I went through this transition with him in a sense, but I don't know how he feels about his old life and where our memories fit in. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I hear you. And I guess I have to point out that when we see a butterfly, we don't call it a caterpillar. And we might talk about its like previous state, but we still are referring to it as a butterfly. Or maybe a better metaphor is when, particularly if a woman gets married and chooses to take her husband's last name, even when we're talking about memories of that person from long before they met their spouse, we usually would refer to them by that new name, right? Like if I were to talk about where Hillary Clinton went to college, I wouldn't need to call her Hillary Rodham, even though she wasn't married at that point. And I guess I just point out that linguistic piece because I feel like it's part of what is maybe tripping you up here. And I hear you, feeling frustrated with yourself and these different things. And I might really encourage you to think of that person that you went to college with, that you've known for all this time, as a he, and to start thinking of them as that new name, and recognize that it wasn't a she that became a he. Gender fluidity is its own thing, and potentially we could have that discussion. But in all likelihood, what I'm imagining is that this is a he who's always been a he, but perhaps did not know that yet or did not express that in that way. Does that feel fair at all?
Yeah, I think where I'm worried, and I heard everything you said, and it was beautifully put. Not that you need compliments, but but it's the idea that he was in pain before,
Hmm.
and I don't know if being her was painful, whether there was inadvertently pain I contributed to. I want him to be as happy as he's been um, since becoming he. And I love him. I really do. And I miss. We live now in different parts of the country, so we don't see each other very much. I miss spending time with him because nobody made me laugh harder. But I worry. It's to your point about whether it's a name change for marriage or we don't think of the caterpillar. Hillary Rodham wasn't going through pain for being Hillary Rodham, and the
Sure.
caterpillar wasn't in pain for being a caterpillar. Where I don't always feel like that's the same situation for people who gender transition. They're in pain until they figure it out. In a lot of my experience, or reading and
Are you
gossiping, I
worried
guess.
that your
But
memories, your positive memories, are painful ones for him, and that
it,
reminiscing with him is going to elicit pain for him, even though it's nostalgia for you, and you're not sure how to traverse that?
absolutely, I'll give you a quick story. So we went on vacation to Arizona before I moved here, and we were picked. We got a door prize to go to get a spa treatment.
Hmm.
And when we went to the spa, they assumed that she was my spouse and kept referring to her as Mrs. Last Name. And it was driving her up the wall. Now, to me, it was just funny because, I'm focused on men, she's lesbian, and that part of it was just funny to me because it was just assumed that because we were there together that we must be a married couple. And
Hmm.
she was really like driven up the wall. So to me, it's funny. And to her, now him, I don't know if like a memory like that would have been, don't they see me? Don't they realize
It
who
could
I
be.
am?
Sure.
That kind of piece of it. Or that I didn't even notice with the kids that I deal with, and being so involved with my community at that time, and the diversity of LGBT people in my life at that time, that I didn't see anything coming from her that suggested that there was some other layer to this going on. She seemed like a perfectly happy lesbian to me, butch, but sorry for anybody who hates that term, but I'm old. But, very happy lesbian. So I really I was really floored. In fact, when she first told me, I thought it was a joke that she was, it's like, well, yeah, you cut your hair short and you like wearing flannel, but I don't think that means anything, was joking. And then it was like, no, I'm now this person and I'm he. And it was like, whoa, where did that come from? That kind of a feeling.
Probably a
And
lot of
uh,
self-exploration and a hard
A
introspection
lot of
is,
personal work. Yeah.
yeah, it's probably where that came from.
yeah,
So if this person, if he's somebody who's a close friend of yours and you've had an existing relationship with that was close and open, it sounds like you're projecting a lot about what you're afraid he might think, or what aspects of your relationship may have been incidentally harmful in the past and how that's going to impact you now. You may benefit from having a conversation like this with him, like, and letting him know that you care about him as much now as you did then in all of the same ways. And if there was part of that journey he didn't feel like he could share with you then, for whatever reason, you're open to explore those feelings with him now and start building new memories with who he is, who he's always been, now that he's instantiated himself as himself. And then you don't have to have the anxiety surrounding what he might think, because you will know what he does
Hmm.
think. and involve him in the conversations about him that you've been having in your mind. It may help assuage some of this. It may build you a stronger relationship, and it may give him an even more important confidant and friend than he had in you in the past. It may reincarnate that relationship into something even more beautiful and something even more meaningful now that he's in the next stage of his life. And you can go with him.
Yeah, and Stephen, if I may, it would not be unreasonable for you to have some anxiety about having that conversation or asking these questions, in part because you're afraid of the answer. Because it hurts to think back on those positive memories and to recognize that they may or may not have been the same experience for somebody that you care about. I'm with Shannon. I think that clearing up some of that ambiguity, opening that door, having that conversation has real value. But I just want to give you permission to have feelings about that.
Mm.
You know, you're still responsible for your actions, right? You're still responsible to see this person as who they are telling you they are, to meet them in that, to move forward with them, to be respectful in the way that you speak to them and about them, and all of these different things. But if you have some discomfort, some sense of sorrow over that pain, that's okay. That makes you human, and you don't need to apologize or try and bury that emotion in order to make sure you're getting the right pronoun and all of those kinds of things. I don't know that those two things are necessarily connected.
That's fair.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I think you're right. A lot of it is just fear about having that conversation. But thank you for your insights. I do very much appreciate it and enjoy your program very much.
I can tell you care about him, Stephen, and I hope that everything works out and that you journey together into an even more beautiful and fruitful relationship than you had prior, and you have a long, happy friendship.
So say we all. Yeah.
Thank you, Christy.
You're welcome.
Okay. Take care.
Have a good rest of the day.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, you too.
And you know,
That's so
this
genuine.
Yeah, and these conversations are hard enough in a beautiful world of different types of people meeting and bouncing off of each other and loving each other and the people you lose along the way. You know, there's so much complexity to that sorrow without adding in a culture that is just so violent and aggressive and works so hard to make the experience of trans folks so often sorrowful that, you know, Stephen could almost just assume that it's there.
Yeah. Like if you could take all of that aspect away from it, like how society makes everything about transition and finding out who you are away and just focus on that, an analogy that helped me when I was first kind of learning my way through this is, as a mom, I know what it's like to kind of lament that I will never have my my son as a baby again. I know what it's like to lament that I'll
Sure.
never have him as a toddler again. But that doesn't take away from how excited and happy I am to see who he is now. Like
Mm.
I don't want that back because that means I would give up now. And now, like now is amazing. Every day I get to watch him become a better, more him version of him than he was the day before. And that's exciting. That's wonderful. Him finding himself and becoming more of himself is wonderful and beautiful. That is what it's all about. But it's still valid to have feelings of, oh, I miss when he was little and I could just
Yeah.
hold him.
I
But
hadn't heard that comparison. I think that's beautifully
yeah,
said.
it
I
happens.
I might be tempted to trade in my teenager for like the earlier version,
Yeah,
but
he's
I
11.
can
I
take the
haven't hit that
sentiment.
yet.
Yeah.
You'll talk to me again in 3 years. I may
Yeah.
have a different story. There may be a different story coming out of my mouth in 3 years than ours right now.